you guys. It was good to see most of you yesterday. Today, I want to go ahead and get started talking about rhetorical analysis. I know yesterday when we had our Zoom meeting, a lot of you said, okay, I'm kind of familiar with it. So it's not going to be anything different from what you're familiar with. And then a couple people said they don't know what rhetoric is at all. So we're going to pretend like we don't know much. And I want to show you just a couple things. So first, I want to go to this basic outline. I'm going to build and build and build on this outline, so don't get too stressed out about it now. But a couple things. I think this is, again, I told you this the other day in the other PowerPoint, such a great reason for why we study rhetoric, but just so we know what to believe, and not because somebody else tells us, but because we've done our research and because we've actually looked into what people are saying and how they're saying them. It makes us a much more savvy consumer. It makes us smarter people. So kind of keep that in your mind. That's why we do it. So anyway, first things first, with your essay, your main goal is to look at the effectiveness of articles. And really, more than that, you're looking at which article is more effective. So you're going to look at two, and you're going to tell me which one is more effective rhetorically. So when you do that, you're going to basically analyze these things. I decided to make two videos. So in the first one, I'm going to look at rhetorical situation, which is author, audience, purpose. And then the second one, I'm going to look at the rhetorical appeals, which are ethos, pathos, logos. So right now, we're going to look at rhetorical situation. So another thing I wanted to show you is that I have this PowerPoint and it's been up here. But I think it's better to have somebody go through it with you, because a PowerPoint in and of itself, I don't think does justice to how I teach this. So I was like, I'm going to do it with you. Anyway, I did update it to you because I was like, oh, it's kind of boring and, whatever. So I updated it a little bit, but the information hasn't changed a ton. It might be a little bit more in depth. So anyway, rhetorical analysis. And so again, we're only going to look at the situation, which is author, audience, purpose. So something I want you to think about. Rhetoric is basically using language effectively. And people have been talking about rhetoric since like a million years ago. I think Aristotle wrote Poetics, where he actually created the words ethos, pathos, and logos. So it's been around for a long time. I wanted to draw your attention to this because rhetoric is not the easiest thing to understand. So if you're like, oh, I don't understand it, don't get too stressed out, because I think I do have a lot of stuff that's going to help you understand it. Okay, so here we go. So rhetorical situation. So whenever you're looking at an article, you want to look at the author of a piece, the audience of a piece, and the purpose of a piece. And when I say that, right now you're not even analyzing the author that much. You're just seeing who they are. So let's talk about this. So for your paper, you are going to see who the author of an article is and basically only tell us what you know about them based on your essay. You're not judging them at this point. You're just telling me who they are. And usually the article itself may give you a little, and I have this little thing what I created where I found this article on NC Live, and so basically this is what I'm talking about. We have the author right here, and then if you notice, there's like little marks by their name that pointed down here. And so I blew that up and it actually told us where the author worked. And so sometimes you can find that, sometimes you can't. But sometimes you can't. So that might be one place where you find affiliations. But really, here's the big thing with this. You may not find much about the author, and don't stress about it, because this is only one part of a bigger paragraph. So you're going to have a whole paragraph on author, audience, purpose. So that's only like a sentence or two. So don't get too stressed out if you don't have much for author. Okay. Audience is where you actually will do a lot more analyzing. So you're trying to see who this article is aimed to. And so people say, well, anybody could read it. True, but they probably wrote it with somebody in mind. And I want you to think about like these kind of demographics. So I said gender, ethnicity, race, age, cultural experience, sexuality, wealth factors like socioeconomic backgrounds, education level. And so what I mean by that is I want you to think about these things. And so if you're looking at this article in Men's Health, almost immediately we say it's probably for men. I mean, it's probably at least aimed toward men. Of course, women could read it, but it's probably aimed toward men. Ethnicity and race, probably not that much with men's health. Age, I would think that this is not necessarily for a 75-year-old, so I kind of think about that. And usually I would even think sexuality, men's health is pretty hetero for the most part. So I would think that that's something we would probably look at. A lot of times they're probably aiming a lot of their articles, toward heterosexual men. Wealth factors, I'm not sure about. Education level, I don't know that it makes that much of a difference. So I think about that and I'm like, not everything you can actually even use to analyze, but there are usually lots of things. And so there are different ways that you can find these in their article, like who their audience is. And so for me, I look at content and I say, if I have this article that's about vegan eating, I'm probably not going to aim it toward my 70-year-old mom who just doesn't really care about her diet at all. She would hate me saying that. But anyway, so who do you think the article appeals to? And then you tell me why. And that why, when you start answering that question, that's analyzing. And so then look at where the article was published. I'm going to talk about this, but I actually used Men's Health right here. If an article was published in the JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medical Association, it will have a very different intended audience than the audience of Men Health. They both have articles about health, but they're probably really, really different. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm reading those. And so with that pop article versus a scholarly article, you're going to have two really different audiences. And your job is to analyze them. Okay, so that's that. Purpose. Now, obviously people just say, well, the purpose is just to inform. But almost always the purpose is really important. Are they trying to sell you a lifestyle? Do they have a hidden agenda? Are they trying to get you to change your ways? I mean, you have to think about all these things. And so the one thing that I can't state enough, audiences and authors tend to bring their own purposes and often multiple purposes to a rhetorical situation. So think about that whenever you're reading that. Why did they write this? Why did they want me to know this information? And when you answer that question, again, you're analyzing. Okay, so one of the things I did in 111 was I made my students look at advertising. And I think it's a great start for 111, and it gets way deeper in 112. So one of the things I had my students do was analyze the author, the audience, and the purpose of this crazy old ad that was really popular when I was in grad school. So I would say the early 2000s. Anyway, so I want to look at this and kind of look at our author. So when we look at our author specifically, what do we know about our author? Well, who is it? They don't tell us anywhere, right? But we probably know based on this logo here. And so we probably know based on the logo that the author's Apple. And so we have to think about, in that paragraph, if I were writing that, I would say my author is Apple. And then I would say, what do I know about them? Well, I don't know tons about them, except for probably they are a leader in the field of electronics. And so I would probably say that. And then I might talk about some very kind of well-known products that they sell, which would be like the iPhone, the MacBooks are really, really popular. Used to, they had the iPod. So I definitely think that's all you would need to say there. You don't have to go and do like a Wikipedia search of how much money they make, because all we're going to do right now is just look at who they are. Okay, but now audience is really different, and my students find very different ideas about this. Some people say, okay, well, it's a pink background, so it's aimed at women. And some people say, well, there's a woman in here, so maybe it's aimed at men, like to make men want to date somebody like her. I think it's up to you, and I think the thing that I think the most about analysis is you're not necessarily wrong, as long as you're explaining yourself. So when I look at this ad, I see somebody we have a young woman, she's got these little bangles on her arm, she's got this nice little headband. I would say that her audience to me is probably somebody who wants to be cool. I don't put an age range on that because I'm almost like, oh, people see her, they're like, oh, she's young, she's having fun, I want to be young, maybe I should get an iPod. If they are young, they're like, oh, look at that, she looks awesome, I'll buy that. I don't see, and I think one of the things that's really great about this ad, and I think Apple did such a good job, I don't see much indicator of race in here. And I think that's fun because that makes a really broader audience. Men versus women, I'm not 100% sure. Some of my students have said that socioeconomically you have to at least have enough money to buy an iPod for this appeal to you. So I could see that. Education level, I don't know. And then a couple little things that I look at. I go down to the actual text on here, and so it says, "Welcome to the digital revolution. 7,500 songs in your pocket. Works with Mac or PC. Over a million sold." And so another thing that I was thinking that was really cool about the audience is they are trying to figure out a way to appeal to a broader audience. So they have this thing that even if you don't have like a MacBook, it'll work with your PC. So they're also trying to appeal to people who aren't necessarily their demographic. They are trying to appeal to these outside people. And I think that's great because it works with purpose. Kind of their purpose is to get more people to join them. And like, if you buy the iPod, then you'll realize, oh, I really like the iPod. Maybe I'll buy the iPhone. Maybe I'll buy the MacBook Air. And so it's almost like trying to get you into the family there. So I think that's kind of interesting too. So that audience could be somebody who likes a Mac or a PC. Okay, and the purpose. Clearly the purpose is to sell the iPod. But like I said, they're also maybe inviting people into the family. And then I think about this idea of a digital revolution. They didn't have to use the word revolution. So they're trying to sell this idea of almost being individual in some ways. And so when they have this digital revolution, you're like, oh, I'm an individual. I should join the revolution. And I think like the weirdness and the irony and all that. I just want to be like everybody else who's joining the revolution. But anyway, not the point. And then over a million sold, there's like this bandwagon idea. I want to get on their bandwagon. And so their purpose is to sell this. It's to sell the company. It's to sell it to Mac or PCs and to kind of introduce this thing because at that point it was new. They don't even sell those things anymore. Anyway, so that's kind of my introduction to author audience purpose. If you have questions about that, feel free to ask me. I think probably working with Zoom will be something better for that. So I'm going to start doing the digital office hours like we talked about yesterday. So if you do have questions about anything, think about this lecture, write some stuff down, and then let's come meet and talk about it on Tuesday. Okay, I think that's it. Let me know if you have any questions. See you guys later. Bye.